Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with the mighty Jingles. That's right, I'm back. Mingles with Jingles yesterday, and we're kicking off the new year with a World of Warships video. This is the Henderman, and he's in the Fujin. It's a premium tier 5 Japanese destroyer, identical in all respects other than how it looks to the Kamikaze, another premium tier 5 Japanese destroyer. The only real difference between the Kamikaze and the Fujin is that the Fujin has a Halloween style camo scheme. The Henderman is going to have one hell of a game in his Fujin as he's attempting to put some shots with his guns into the marker boy over there. Well, nothing else to do at the start of battle, I suppose. Why the hell not? I wouldn't recommend doing anything like this at the start of the game if you're in a battleship, for example, because you will get detected by the enemy team from the other side of the map and they'll send a couple of 380mm care packages in your direction and you won't like it. Destroyers, however, yeah, why not? Just, you know, cool it. Once you start advancing forwards and it's likely that you're in line of sight of any enemy destroyers, I highly recommend you stop spamming your guns just to listen to the pretty noises they make. You do get that a lot in lower tier battles. Everybody starts immediately firing their guns and powering away at full speed in the direction of the enemy team and can't understand why they suddenly start getting shot at. Well, the Henderman isn't going to be doing any of that. What he is going to be doing is getting into a lot of trouble right at the start of this match. In fact, he's going to be in a lot of trouble all the way throughout this match, but particularly at the beginning when he's rushed forward and attempting to get a sneaky capture of Bravo and he's been spotted by a fighter squadron from the enemy carrier. And here comes the bad news. Bizarrely, the enemy carrier doesn't make the most of the opportunity that he's got to keep him spotted and have his team nail him right at the start. The Fujin's anti-aircraft defences are absolutely terrible. The carrier could circle him with fighters for the rest of the game, keeping him constantly spotted, and he would never be able to shoot them down, but the aircraft head off in the other direction, which leaves... well, he took a big old hit there, and he's lost his engine, which is not good, but now he's no longer detected. Those enemy ships could have made a real mess of him if the carrier had kept his aircraft overhead, but he didn't, so he's gotten away with it. And of course those guys are now all spotted, having fired their guns. He's put a couple of fish in the water in the direction of that Furitaka over there. 7-kilometre range on the torpedoes. He was 7 kilometres away. Maybe they'll hit, maybe no, they're not going to hit. You can tell by the torpedo aiming indicator that the Furitaka is already turning away to the other side. Then again, these torpedoes only have a 20-second reload, so why the hell not? If he turns around again, some of them may hit. But trouble, more aircraft, and he is spotted again. Lots of torpedo bombers, one squadron of dive bombers, and the dive bombers are the ones that you have to watch out for if you're in a destroyer. The torpedo bombers, not so much, and just look at this. Naturally, the enemy carrier has vectored his torpedo bombers against the battleships. And there's a Yubari over there with them. That's a tier 4 premium Japanese cruiser. Very, very good anti-aircraft cruiser. But, well, self-defense anti-aircraft cruiser only. It's quite comical because the Yubari at the beginning of the match was telling his team, battleships, stay with me and I'll protect you from the aircraft. No, you won't. Well, you can. But the thing about the Yubari, I mean, it gets the defensive fire cooldown, and it does have strong anti-aircraft guns, but they're very short-range anti-aircraft guns. So if you're planning on screening your battleships, you do need to be ahead of them, not trailing them, because by the time you've managed to shoot an aircraft down, it's too late. They've already dropped their torpedoes, as one of those guys found out the hard way. Still, props to the Yubari for at least trying. So the Kaiser took 2 torpedoes. The New York managed to avoid them all, but the Yubari is peeled away and run off in the other direction. So we've got 2 battleships, 1 destroyer, and a cruiser who's outside of effective firing range. And down there, the enemy team have 5 battleships, tier 4 and up, and a Furitaka tier 5 cruiser. That is a lot of firepower. And they're focusing their fire on the injured Kaiser. He's already taken 2 torpedo hits, so all those enemy ships, and there's a lot of enemy ships down there, look at that. It's like, that's all the battleships, and there's a cruiser in there as well. Possibly a destroyer, we just haven't seen him yet. But they're pretty much all focusing their fire on the Kaiser, and he's not enjoying it too much. Now over there's an enemy Koenig, tier 5 battleship. 7-kilometre range on these torpedoes. He's not quite in range, but he's heading this way, and he's got an island on his right-hand side, which means that he's only going to be able to make a turn to the left. However, We'll worry about that in a moment. The torpedoes are away, but the Henderman has been spotted. It's those pesky aircraft again, and they forced him to pull a sudden turn in an attempt to avoid getting hit, and that means he's had to leave the cap circle, which has arrested the progress on capturing Charlie. And here come the torpedo bombers. His own torpedoes are all going to miss. The Koenig spotted him. The Kaiser is down. He's attempting to avoid the wreck of the Kaiser, but hitting... Ooh, that was close. Perhaps, I'm not entirely sure, but if he had continued on that turn and he hadn't bumped into the wreck of the Kaiser there, those torpedoes may have hit him. And oh look, there's the Yabari. There's one torpedo. And there's two torpedoes. What price your anti-aircraft guns now, Mr. Yabari? Hey, you wanted the enemy aircraft, you've got the enemy aircraft, and now you've got some more enemy aircraft. That Zuiho has sent another wave of torpedo bombers against the anti-aircraft cruiser. And he sunk him. He lost some aircraft doing it, but, well, the Yabari's down. And that just leaves that Kirov over there, as well as the Henderman in the Fujin. But the Kirov has just managed to get some torpedoes away, but he's still sailing in the direction of the enemy fleet. And he's about to get hammered by, well, if not the Koenig, then everything else down there. Remember, there's 5 enemy battleships and a cruiser over there. The Henderman pops some torpedoes away. The Kirov is down. The Henderman is now completely alone in this end of the map. And just look at that lot. Friendly carriers managed to get a dive bomber strike on the Congo over there, but he immediately extinguishes the flames, and why not? As far as he's aware, there are no other enemy ships at this end of the map, but he's managed to avoid all of the torpedoes fired by the Kirov, and the turn to avoid the torpedoes fired by the Kirov means that he's also avoided all of the torpedoes fired by the Henderman. Henderman has done no damage so far in this game. Well, that's all about to change. What would you do in these circumstances? I mean, look at his position on the map. There isn't a friendly ship within 20 kilometers of his position. He's right in the top northeastern corner of the map. He's got enemy ships due south and to the southwest. I mean, he's in serious danger of being pinned into this corner, but he's in a Fujin, and those are all battleships. This is the kind of thing that would only really work in the Fujin or lower tier destroyers. You couldn't get away with what he's going to do here. Oh, we strayed a little bit too close. He did get spotted, but how many of them are paying attention? See if anybody tries to shoot at him. He's not detected anymore. Let's see if the Wyoming paid attention to the fact that a destroyer popped up, and he is turning. But I think some of these are going to hit him anyway. So he was paying attention. He did see the destroyer appear on the map, but he's taken 1, looks like 2, straight on the nose, and 2 floodings. So, not bad. 6 torpedoes, 2 hits. And the Wyoming isn't taking any further damage, so he must have used his damage control ability, and absolutely, definitely the right thing to do. If you're flooding in 2 separate locations, that kind of damage builds up very, very quickly. So they know there's a destroyer out here somewhere. Still 3 destroyers on the enemy team, but at least 2 of them have been detected all the way over on the other side of the map, so there's a very good chance that the Henderman is pretty much alone. Certainly nobody else on his team up this end of the map, but it's also very likely that those 5 enemy ships are the only enemy ships he really has to worry about. But they've kind of got him pinned in from all sides right up on the map border up here. Now look at the scores for a moment. His team controlled no flags. They've lost 4 ships. They've just pulled a couple of points back. They're now at 100 points to the enemy team of over 600, because they've just nailed 1 of the enemy ships. But if they lose 2 more ships without sinking anything, it's game over. The enemy team will drive them down to 0 points and end X. So it's just as well that the Henderman manages to sink an enemy ship. Now that's bought them a little bit of breathing space, but not much, because the enemy team have sunk one of theirs as well. But then the Henderman's team managed to sink another one, keeping them afloat, pun intended, for a few minutes longer, unfortunately. It's all a bit tit for tat here. The enemy managed to nail another one. His team are now down 7 ships to 4 ships on the enemy team. He's going to have to sink another one. He's got some torpedoes in the water, and oh, it's difficult to say. He's managed to hedge his bets there with... he's not firing them all down the same track, so perhaps he doesn't want to get any closer to that Congo, but at the same time... Oh, actually, this does look pretty good. In fact, this looks very, very good. There's 1. There's 2. Can we get a 3rd? Can we get a 3rd? Well, I think we can get a 3rd. Oh, so close! So incredibly close. That one scraped the paintwork. But you'll notice that the Wyoming is still taking flooding damage. The damage numbers are still going up. There he goes. So... his damage control ability is obviously on cooldown. That's great news. It's just about the only good news that the Henderman's got at this stage of the game, because that Congo is getting awfully close. Now he's being forced to manoeuvre to avoid torpedoes from the friendly carrier, but Henderman's going to get spotted if he strays within 6 kilometres. So which way do you go? Because you've got enemy ships closing in from all directions, and behind you is the map border. If he gets any closer than 6 kilometres to the Congo, Congo's going to spot him. If he turns around and heads away from the Congo, the Wyomings are going to spot him. And there's a Koenig over there as well. So fire some torpedoes at the Congo, who did take a torpedo from the carrier. And oh no, aircraft, no, that's not good at all. His team are down to 60 points, and he gets spotted by one of the Wyomings. Oh no. So 3 enemy ships over there, and 2 enemy ships over here. Lesser of 2 evils, get the island between you and the 3 enemy ships, particularly when one of them is a cruiser, so that's what he does. So how much attention are the Koenig and the Congo paying? Because right now they're the only ones that can actually shoot at him. The Congo's guns are pointing in the other direction, but he's turned and avoided the torpedoes. That doesn't necessarily mean he realises that there's a destroyer behind him. The Koenig, on the other hand, is paying no attention whatsoever, and is in fact firing his guns into the mountain next to him, so there's that. The Wyomings and the Furataka, however, are paying attention. And they've just pasted him, and his torpedoes are reloading. So he has no real other option right now, other than slowing and popping his smokescreen for the first time in this game. Now, remember, smokescreens work both ways. He's losing sight of these guys, but there is one other friendly ship who's just close enough to spot these Wyoming battleships when they fire their guns. So, a couple more seconds and the torpedoes are up. The lead Wyoming does look as if he's turning nose on to the smokescreen, which is the smart thing to do, as the trailing Wyoming disappears. He's not fired his guns recently. Torpedoes away. But the lead Wyoming looks like he is, in fact, turning broadside on to these torpedoes at a range of less than 3 kilometres. And he's going to pay for that. There's 1, there's 2, there goes his steering, there goes his engine. He's taking flooding damage. 3rd torpedo hit, but watch the 4th torpedo. That 4th torpedo completely missed the lead Wyoming battleship, but it's hit the trailing Wyoming. Now we still can't see him, that's the lead Wyoming again, but the trailing Wyoming is taking flooding damage. And the Henderman has again lost sight. He's sunk. There he is. There's the trailing Wyoming. He's lost sight of the lead Wyoming, but he had a fairly good idea. The guy was sailing broadside on at a range of less than 3 kilometres from the smokescreen, popped the torpedoes in the water anyway, and he kills him. But let's not get too carried away, because the smokescreen is just dissipated, so engines up. That's right, there was a Furataka out there somewhere, but he's got 1 torpedo launcher left, and the Furataka is at a range of 2.5 kilometres. Wait, no, he had a 2nd torpedo launcher ready to go, so there are 4 torpedoes in the water, angled the spread, and he's taken out the Furataka as well. Absolutely spectacular. And this is something that you just couldn't do in a tier 10, 9, 8 or 7 Japanese destroyer. And you couldn't do it because they don't have enough torpedo launchers, and the torpedo launchers that they have fire too many torpedoes. He's still spotted, by the way. Oh, it's the Congo. The Congo's still alive. Whoa, there are the dive bombers. The enemy carrier has finally decided it might be a good idea to send some dive bombers after this pesky Fusion. See, the thing is, the Fusion's torpedoes, well, it has 3 launchers, but those launchers only have 2 tubes. And each of those launchers has a 47-second reload. If you're in something like the Shimakaze, for example, which has 3 launchers, 5 torpedoes per launcher, if you're trying to sink a target that only has 20,000 health remaining, 5 torpedoes is complete overkill. You only need 2. But you don't get the option to fire 2, you have to fire 5. And you're going to need those other 3 torpedoes if you're in this kind of situation. Plus, those torpedo launchers take 2.5 minutes to reload. So you can see that it would just not have been possible to pull off the kind of result. And he's capping Charlie. Oh, he's detected again. Pesky aircraft. But it just would not have been possible. In the same situation that the Henderman found himself in here in his Fusion, in his tier 5 battle, if he'd been in a Shimakaze in a tier 10 battle, he would have died. He just would not have been able to sink enough ships fast enough to keep them on the back foot and on the defensive in the way that the Henderman was able to do here in the Fusion. If you see the wall of skill heading in your direction from an undetected Shimakaze in a tier 10 battle, you avoid the torpedoes and you know you've got 2.5 minutes before you can do it again. Not so in the Fusion. And 15 torpedoes is overkill when you only need 2 or 3 to sink the target. You have that flexibility option in the Fusion that you don't really have in the higher tier Japanese destroyers. Look at the mess he made of that bogue. Come on, finish him off with the guns. Can we get a Kraken gun kill? Oh, not quite. 26 health. The guns on the Fusion aren't bad either. They're not, well, they're not great, but you know, they're better than most Japanese destroyers. Kraken with a gun kill. Yeah, he can get a Kraken with the gun kill. He's still spotted by aircraft, of course, but, well, that Zuiho has to be sweating around about now. Oh, there he is, he's been spotted. The enemy team have got to be asking themselves, how the hell do you fuck that up? I mean, at one point, the Henderman's team were down 7 ships, and they'd only sunk 2 or 3 of the enemy ships. And they only had 70 points. None of the flags, and now look at them. Due in no small part to the Henderman, well, you can't really call them delaying tactics. I've been in this kind of situation in the Mutsuki back when that was tier 6. A couple of ships that had headed with me over to the eastern end of the map had all gotten sunk. 4 or 5 enemy ships all steaming north around the eastern end of the map, threatening our cap, and all I could do was slow them down by putting torpedoes in the water and forcing them to break off and disengage and scoring the occasional torpedo hit. But I had no hope of sinking all of the ships that were pursuing me. All I could do was stay out of detection range, keep them spotted, and keep harassing them with the occasional torpedo launch, because whenever I fired my torpedoes, I was putting too many torpedoes in the water from each launcher. It was overkill, and it just took too long to reload them. I couldn't keep up the pressure in the way that you can in the Fusion. And there's another hit for the Confederate award. The Zuiho's putting up a fight though. He's got his torpedo bombers in the air. And look at that, 215,000 damage in a tier 5 destroyer. That's a decent amount of damage to do in a tier 10 game. Swinging it around. Another torpedo launcher and a widespread. Oh, here they come. Torpedo beats intensify. No, he's avoided those. And those, this is it. It's game over. He's going to sink him, and he's got it. That was the Henderman, over 200, well over 200,000 damage, and 6 kills, not just 5, alone against, if you count the enemy carriers, 8 enemy ships in the premium tier 5 Japanese destroyer, the Fusion. That's it for today, folks. Hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.